For the 48S configuration, LiBCM requires a 12S module and two 18S modules. However, if you don't have a 12S module, you can turn an 18S module into a 12S module with the adapter kit. It's basically the conversion we're going to do on this one. So we'll set this out of the way for now. So the first thing we need to do is figure out which module we need to actually convert. And so if you have three 18S minus modules, then you're obviously going to convert an 18S minus. If you have one 18S positive, you're still going to convert an 18S minus. If you have two 18S positives, you're going to convert the 18S positive. And if you have three 18S positives, that's actually not a supported configuration. It doesn't work with LiBCM, or at least I don't support it. So in this case, we're going to convert an 18S minus module. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these orange covers off, and I do that by opening them up, and then there's one side that they come off. We won't reuse these, so I would just throw them away. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to take a flathead screwdriver, and everywhere you see an arrow here, there's a tab that is holding this top piece on. So we'll take and stick a flathead in here, and we're going to just pry up like that. Do the same here. As soon as I get these first two, there's actually a little lip on the side that you can pull up and open. And then we've got two more of these here, like that. And then we've got one more lip over here. That will open this side up. And then over on the other side, it's kind of the same thing. We've got to pull two of these guys out, and then there's no tab over there. And then we pull three more out, and there is no tab on this side either. So as soon as we've done that, we're going to take these rail raceways off. And to do that, we're going to pull up on the tabs here. And then there's actually one more tab right here, like so. And then you've got the same kind of tabs over here. And now we'll take this guy off. We'll start with the tab over here. Now we don't reuse any of this, so if you just want to rip this off, that works too. Of course, you won't be able to go back to an 18S module. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all of these bolts. I have already pre-loosened all of these bolts. So one trick I do is I take a flathead screwdriver and I put it underneath the bolt, because it's just kind of hard to get your hand underneath that nut there. Okay, with all of the nuts off, we're now going to loosen these four tabs here. And we do that by pulling up from below, like that. 2, 3. And then once these are all up, you pull up and then you kind of just jiggle and it'll just come off. We don't reuse this, although if you do go back to an 18S configuration, you will need this. So from here, we need to remove all of these bus bars. And my recommended way of doing this is to take the module and we're going to turn it over completely, but we need to pick it up before we dump it, because you want these bus bars to fall clean. If those bus bars don't fall clean and you turn it back over, you could short out. So now I'm visually inspecting that all of the bus bars are removed, and they are. If they're not, you need to remove them before you turn it back over. You don't want those bus bars shorting out. It would take two bus bars to touch each other to short out, but you don't want to mess around with that. Next, we're going to take the two battery end terminals off, and this is a 7mm. And again, I've pre-loosened these nuts. Okay, and now we can just lift these battery end terminals off. This one's a little bit tight just because the way the terminal was bent when it was put on. Okay, and we'll just set those aside as well. And next we're going to take and remove the 12 bolts here. Again, I've already pre-loosened these. These are pretty tight. This is a T30, which is the same driver you need to remove the IMA cover. Okay, next we're going to take and remove these side plates. They just pull off like that. They are the same, so you don't need to keep track of which one is which. And then we're going to remove the metal end plates here, like so. And we'll just set those out of frame for now. Now we're going to take and we're going to compress the modules with our hand, and we're going to pick it up and set it there. And we're going to get rid of this metal tray. We don't reuse it on the 12S. So now we're going to take and we're going to separate the pack. It doesn't matter where you separate it, but it can't be the end. So we'll just separate it, say right here, and we're going to remove 6 cells. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And make sure at the end of the day that you have a plastic piece on one side and no plastic piece on the other side. So now we're going to take these 6 cells and we're going to just put them away. We don't reuse those in the 12S configuration. So this is our 12S configuration. We need to make sure that the top rightmost cell is negative. You can see it's black here versus red. So you see that's black versus red there. It doesn't matter which orientation this is in. We want black to be in the top right corner. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just set these batteries out of the way for a second. And we're gonna grab the end plates here. There are 12 of these precision standoffs. And these are like $2 a piece because they are a precise height. The height needs to be very precise to keep the compression correct. We're going to take our end plates and put them back on. Like so. And we're going to take one of our side plates here, and this edge is going to go in the groove on the top of the battery there, or in this case on the top of the battery here. And we're going to just push everything together and slide this side on. You will need to pick the cells up slightly. And once we get this side on, we're going to turn it like that. And we're going to install one of the bolts on each side. This will keep it from flying apart here in a second. It doesn't need to be tight, it just needs to be there. Now we're going to make sure that all the plastic is kind of in place there. We're going to take our other side plate and we're going to stick it here. Again, this goes in the channel right there. And we're going to put a screw in on one side, like so. And then we're going to stand the battery up, like so. And you can see we have about 1/4 of an inch we need to do. And we're going to, once again, just kind of make sure that all the plastic tabs and all the cells are in the right spot. And then we're going to push up with our thumbs and push into the table with our fingers until it goes together, like that. And then we can set this down and put one more bolt here. And then we'll go ahead and install the remaining 8 bolts as well. Go ahead and tighten these all the way. Okay, now we're going to take and put these terminals back on. Then we're going to take and rotate the batteries so the terminals here are up. See that? This terminal should be red and this terminal should be black. If that's not the case, you need to flip the cells around. Next, we'll add the bus bars back. And you can't put these on incorrectly. There's a plastic tab that will prevent them from going in the wrong spot. The harness, if you have one of these 18S to 12S harnesses, is just attached to the inside of this cover. So if you remove the cover, do so by just removing these bolts a couple of turns a piece. This allows the PCB to lower slightly. And then once you get to the end, you can go ahead and loosen them all the way. And we do it in this order because we want to make sure that these retaining washers don't fall off. And we're going to remove it. It's kind of weird to be taped in here, but this harness didn't really fit anywhere else. So we'll first just take the tape off on the ribbon side here. And then on these, we need to make sure we don't pull on these eyelets too hard because this is 28 gauge wire and you don't want to rip the eyelets off. So do be careful removing the tape, and also do make sure you remove all the tape because we don't want to block these air holes here. With that, we can take our harness out. And from here, we're going to grab our harness, and the side that has a 1 negative, which has a brown wire here, that's ultimately going to go on the black connection of this battery. And the side that has a 1 plus and a red cable is going to go on the positive side of the rightmost battery. Again, make sure these terminals are away from you. So we're going to start by, we're going to make sure this terminal, this side is not going to touch any of that. And we're going to just put each terminal on one at a time, like so. You need to be careful because if 2 of these terminals were to touch a battery terminal and then each other, they would short out. Next, we'll go and do this side. Oops. Like so. And now we're going to take a zip tie, we're going to put it through this hole. We're going to wrap it around this side, and we're going to zip it all the way down. And then we can cut the edge of this off, like that. And we're going to now just reinstall all of the nuts. I'm going to first put the nuts on the terminals that do not have a spade terminal. And then I'm going to start here at cell 12, the positive one, and we'll just put a nut on here. And we want to make sure this terminal stays more or less, I guess, parallel to the battery, perpendicular to this edge. You can adjust these slightly as needed. So this one you can see is tilted a little bit that way, just to make the wire lengths all uniform. Okay, and then when we tighten these back up, we do want to make sure that we kind of put a finger on the spade terminal so it doesn't rotate as we tighten the nut. So just tighten them all back up. I'm not going to do that in this video. At this point, our Pseudo-12S module is functionally identical to an actual 12S module, except that there is no separate connector here. You can see the ribbon cable just comes straight through. Also, the mechanicals on a real 12S module will attach to the aluminum plate. You'll see this later, I just want to show you the difference. So on the 12S module, the kit includes these 2 standoffs that will then attach to the plate, you know, like that, with 2 bolts. So the standoffs won't work on a Pseudo-12S module because if you look, the aluminum end plate is actually not able to touch this standoff. So instead of using those standoffs, we actually have 3 DIN 1.6 washers, which are thick, and we also have some bolts here. And what we need to do is we need to remove 3 of these bolts. And to figure out which 3 it is, we're going to take and face the battery to where the ribbon cable is away from you, because this is the side that the aluminum plate attaches to. So then on the aluminum plate, we're going to find this trough here, and that's going to go where the terminal is right there. And so that's the orientation. And then you can see that on this side, we only have 2 bolts that can go in the aluminum plate, whereas on this side we have 3. So we're going to remove the middle bolt here and the 2 end bolts here. And we don't reuse these bolts. And so then to attach this end plate, we will actually come in here and put that large washer on there. And we'll do that with the other 2. Now we don't actually need to do this now, but this is a difference from the actual installation instructions. So when the installation instructions are showing you installing these standoffs and then attaching the plate to it, you'll actually need to do this. The reason you don't want to attach this now is it makes routing the wires rather difficult. So now if we look at the battery enclosure here, one other difference with the Pseudo-12S module, and this is a really important difference, is we need to remove this rubber gasket in bay 1, which is the bay closest to the junction board here. So to remove this gasket, you're going to just pull on it. It'll be oily and kind of gross. You'll probably want to wash your hands after you remove it. You absolutely must remove this gasket. This gasket is actually electrically conductive, and I'll show you what happens if you don't remove this. Okay, so what I have set up here is just a simple, I'm going to apply voltage through this wire here, and what you are measuring here is the milliamps. It says millivolts here, but it's a 1 ohm resistor, so this is milliamps running through here. Now I'm going to go stand far away from this and just turn on our power supply. You can see at 50 volts we have 3 milliamps that are flowing. This is a very baffling design decision. I don't know why Honda used a conductive rubber here, because every nickel metal hydride cell runs through here, and the only thing keeping each cell from shorting out is the heat shrink, the orange wrapper they put around each battery. So it's a very, very odd design decision. What we're going to do is we're going to increase the current. Eventually this is going to start smoking. So this is 100 volts here. You can see we're leaking at 7 milliamps now. And this is 120 volts. So this is 140 volts. This is 150 volts. And you can see we have 22 milliamps. This is 175 volts. You can see we have 20 milliamps still. And now we're at 200 volts. You can see it's actually smoking. You might not see that in frame, but 230 volts at 12, so it just started to run away there. So I popped it off real quick. This could be, depending on the cell and the nickel metal hydride configuration, you could have a 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 volt difference there. You can see that this is problematic. This is why we have to remove this, because if you set this atop an 18S or a 12S module, a 12S module can be 50 volts. The reason you have to remove it is that the Pseudo-12S module does not have a plastic cover on it, and when you install it in here, this can actually short out and will drain the battery. It can actually catch on fire. Here are the parts that are not reused with the Pseudo-12S module. One is the bottom metal tray. 2 is the top BMS adapter, which we replaced. These 2 plastic pieces which snap on top. You'll have a few nuts and a few bus bars left over, and then you'll of course have these 6 cells, and then you'll have the 2 plastic covers. And then you'll also have this rubber gasket that's removed from bay 1. Now these 6 cells you're not using, they don't really need to be under compression because you are not actually charging and discharging them. So I would just leave them like this. So of course we haven't really modified anything, so you can bring your Pseudo-12S back to a real 18S module at any point in the future.